Okay, so Frank, let's start. I know that your time is limited.
Okay, thanks for having me, and good morning for everyone. In Berlin, it's quite early, and I have to leave latest at 9:30 because my first meeting of the day is 9:30. But I expect to have not more to say than 1 hour, I say. I wanted to give an introduction lecture for using FontForge. You see here the web page, FontForge, where you can get the download for Mac and Windows. And I don't know if there's also a Linux version. Yeah, it's also here. So it's open source, free of charge, and available for every platform. To the technical limitations, I will say a word later. So let me first come to my script. So on the top, I have a timeline to go with you, and below the timeline, I will have some notes and some steps to go. So when you finish that rule sheet here, you will have a rough understanding of how FontForge works, how the results of FontForge are embedded in your workflow, so to say. So let's go ahead. We would like to start to create some fonts. That's why I have the colored box here on the left side. We will shortly see how will FontForge jump in that position if you already have created some fancy font art. Then we also need to know how our system, our operating system, is involved in the whole workflow, because you would like to deliver the font to all of your fancy design apps. And then we can shortly touch the next topic, which means distribution. But so that's the main roadmap to go. And then I will try to start with the first section here. What is our current fancy font creation? It might be done on pen and paper. So however your ideas will come to life, you can also use a paper sheet and a pen and to draw some fancy characters or scribbles. But that should be converted to digital somehow, because the next step in the progress will be only on the machine. So when we start using FontForge, we need some digital representation of your scribbles, your ideas, and so on. So it might be that you put your paper on the scanner and scan it. So you would have an image after that, like PNG or JPEG or TIFF, whatever works as image file. Then I would prefer following solution. We have different ones, but that would be my favorite. You can then draw the letters, the characters directly in Illustrator. And if I expect that you are familiar with working in Illustrator, you might have the necessary tools to create some characters and maybe also the whole font. I will show that in a minute. Next thing, next buzzword, so to say, we will use the format SVG to transfer our font creation, our raw font creation, to have it then after that inside of FontForge. SVG, you can Google it. The full name is Scalable Vector Graphics. It's an XML-based file format, where in form of extendable markup language described how the graphic will look like. It's all in the first place. Let's check the second column. We would in FontForge import SVG. So you see the importance of that file format. We should be able to export SVG from Illustrator and import it in FontForge. You then can adjust some technical parameters. We have lots of technical parameters in FontForge. We will not touch them in the first round, but maybe if you get familiar with it later on, you find more and more technical properties of the font, of the character and stuff, which you might adjust. what we can easily do is adjust the kerning. That means how far the next character will follow after the first one is typed. And that's something which makes our font beautiful. If we have problems in the kerning, you would immediately see that. And that's easy to fix, so I will show that part too. When we finished our characters and our font, so to say, would be ready, we can set a font family. And maybe you know that from the font handling in Adobe Cloud fonts, for example, or also in InDesign, Photoshop, or Illustrator, you will have tied together certain fonts from the same family. You will distinguish them between bold and italic and plain and stuff. And that's also a feature which we can set in FontForge. Then also one technical term is important. I think that's the last one here from that column. We can then generate a font file and of two different types. Open type font, which is quite common and platform independent, and true type fonts. So then we need some rulers, because at 18 pixels, 1800 pixels, I need some baseline for my character. Let's check the rulers. Can I hide the guides? Can I unlock them? Yes. So I can make sure that that line here is exactly at 800. Yes, it is. So yeah, then we have prepared our sheet for that first character creation. I will lock the guide again. So what can we do? We can use the whole space here for creating our character. Let's put some color here in that we see something. And since that guide here is a baseline of our font, we might also take the space below that guide for lowercase g, for example, or lowercase q, or lowercase j. That might be come below the line. And if you would like to have some space above the character, we might really not use it until the top. We might leave some space on the top and also on the right side, but that's possible to adjust later. I will try to create some geometrical form. So I would only choose some boxes here to carve that out. Let me then use the Pathfinder to open it up somehow. As I don't want it to let it look like a usual A, I would do some interesting operation here. Okay, in the file menu you find the save dialog, and you could expect to use some export here for creating SVGs, but that will create different formats. So we need the save or save as menu for that. And I save it on my computer. And since FontForge is a bit strange program, you might have problems with finding files in your system. I tried it yesterday, and it's not a really native macOS app, so it is sometimes a bit strange to get your stuff to work. The format should be SVG. Next step would be we went to FontForge, create our new font, and then checking some window handling and some settings in the FontForge. So I will create a new one. That means FontForge will now generate for me a sheet with all the possible letters and extra characters which might exist in one font. And if we have a quick look in Illustrator, I have the glyph panel here on the left side. And here you can see how many different characters and signs and letters and numbers and dots and stuff within one entire font. that is a Myriad Pro font, which is delivered with Adobe Creative Cloud. So you can expect to create a whole font. That might be a lot of work. In my case, I would only create 3 capital letters at A, B, C. And these 3 boxes are easy to find here. You see here the box A, B, and C. And if we are finished with these 3 characters, we can save and generate our font. So let's start in that way. Next, we need a new outline window for character A. You see, now we have 2 windows here. That looks quite familiar. Many programs, apps on the Mac have that behavior, so we can trust in that. And here we have our 1000 by 1000. We have our 800 baseline. And if you see, that square is exactly the size what we have in our Illustrator file. So what we do next is we can import the SVG. One word to the paint tools here in FontForge. They're looking really strange. They're behaving sometimes really strange, but they are intended to work, and they will. But what is really important here, that you have the last point really connecting the first one to have it closed. Otherwise, now it's fine. Otherwise, that preview here in the box would not show the whole form of the character. And then we would have a problem. So let's dig a hole inside that one only to finish the first test character here. If I able to hit the last one with the first one, we would see that that hole is also here in the preview. We are inside the box for letter A. I will import my SVG. That's quite easy going here. We go on desktop. Hopefully that works. Yesterday I had really problems to reach the desktop here. And I don't want to import image because I said SVG is already prepared. We have our letter A SVG, and I say import. Keep all as it is. And you see here something like our A, what we created earlier in Illustrator. And since we already have prepared our letter B, there's easy going. I only need to import it from the desktop. Letter B SVG, import. We might move everything to the left, that we will have the starting point at the same point as in the letter A. So let's move the selection here. You see B is filled with black, A is filled with black. They are quite similar in height, not exactly, but quite similar. So what to do lastly, we need character C. As you can see, without the need of that path here, I would ungroup them and also join them. So if we go to outline mode, you see there's no more points in between. The only left separated circles are the top ones here. So fine to go with my C. Yeah, to be sure, let's color it black, only that we see how it works, and export that one or save that one also as SVG file. So file type SVG. My letter name is letter C, and I do it also on the desktop because there it is easy to find. Prompt the OK. Let's go back to FontForge. The B is finished and we can close that. Let's create a new outline window for letter C and straight on go to import. We have our letter C now. Yeah, it looks quite clean now because I cleaned up my desktop yesterday a bit. I have only these 3 SVGs here, so that old school import dialog shows only that one. Let's import the C. Looks good that far. And if I combine here, move the selection to the next empty window, you see we have now three really unique characters, one strange and fancy A, fancy B, and more fancy C. So that's quite good. And what we can do now is adjust some kerning. Let's look how it feels if we use that letters. I go in the matrix window and I can now type characters here, for example, ABC. And that means it would use our characters. And if we go further, C, I have to create upper C. That might be working here. And we can also take some B and stuff so that we can see how our characters are working together. And if we now would go and adjust some of the lines inside the character, we could reduce the space between the characters. So let's go to character A and move that right line a bit closer to the A. You can watch it here again. Okay, so I'm happy with that. Let's go back to my script and see what's next. Yeah, now we need, we skip that draw directly stuff because I don't really like the tools in FontWatch, but they are plenty of and they should work. We adjusted the kerning right now. Now, shortly before generating the font, we need to set a font family and a name so that we have some legal information, so to say, because we are the creator of the font. Now I forgot where it is, element font info. So I would call that thingy fancy ABC. So family name is okay, and that since the book characters are quite bold, I would say that is the bold weight. And if we would create a second font later on with a different weight, then with the same family name, Illustrator or Photoshop would sort them next to each other so that it would be easy for you also to find the characters in your Illustrator menu. Yeah, whatever information you want to add here, you can do that, but for now, that's enough. I only need to generate the font file now. Once again, file, generate fonts. Type is given, name is given, let's generate. And you see here on the desktop now, he created a TTF file. Go the next step. We need to install it. So let's go installation. That process is a bit different in Windows and in macOS and also in Linux. I would say open with my font book, which is my system application to handle fonts in my system. And the preview for that font is not that comfortable because he reduced it for 2 letters, no problem. But the main thing is I can now install the font. Okay, so let me use my standard default text editor here. Hey man, there is a fancy ABC. So let's select these letters here. Then let's take my fancy ABC. Oh, that looks amazing. And then we change the font size. I would like to have 3 letters in blue. And also I would have to have some letters in yellow, and they should be bigger. And this one should be smaller. Last word here, distribution. Yeah, I remember the end of the beginning of the 90s where font designers are really good paid workers. And as in the old times back then, I think for certain big companies and brands, it's still the behavior that they want to have their own font. For example, Porsche has their own font. The German car manufacturers have all their own fonts. They are quite expensive. You cannot have them because of legal limitations. And that might be that you pay 200 euros for a certain font if you want to have your own. So it's worth thinking about becoming a font creator, maybe.
Thank you so much, Frank. Thanks a lot for your lecture.